Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining today. My name is Bill Inman. I'm here with Brandon Moreno, who is the president of EverHive. Many of you know EverHive. It's one of the fastest growing contingent workforce management companies in the U.S. And I'll have Brandon introduce himself in just a second and let us know a little bit more about EverHive. I've been working with EverHive for a few years now, known Brandon for multiple years, and was just thrilled with the level of innovation at EverHive, which has helped propel the company. So we're having a dialogue today, and we, just like you at home, Brandon and I have been shocked about the speed and the scale of all of the challenges that we're seeing with COVID-19. And we have a lot of updates. Both Brandon and I have our pulse on the industry. We've been in the industry for over 2 decades each. And we've talked to a lot of people. So we wanted to share some of those insights with you and what we're doing at EverHive to help combat COVID-19. But first, let me hand off to Brandon. Brandon, it'd be great for you to introduce yourself and talk a little bit about EverHive.
Thanks, Bill. Yeah, my name's Brandon Moreno, and thank you all for tuning in, watching, listening, and just hearing some of our thoughts as we too navigate through some of these most dramatic and unprecedented times. So EverHive was founded to help organizations, much like probably many of you that are watching here, to really kind of architect contingent workforce solutions and be able to adapt and change to scale up or down depending on what the business needs demand. And we're seeing that happen more and more each and every day, where companies are trying to flex within the organization. So EverHive, we're excited. We're going on our 5th year. But as Bill, as you mentioned, been in the industry for more than 2 decades, leading global HR and talent acquisition teams, personally myself. So excited to kind of share some tips that we're hearing and just candidly our own thoughts on some things and some golden nuggets that you'll be able to pull as you listen in on us a little bit more for the next couple minutes.
Yeah, I know that you've had a lot of conversations with high-level HR contacts all over the U.S. lately, so excited to hear your kind of anecdotal advice on that. But before we get started, both Brandon and I are working from home, so forgive us if you hear the gardener outside. Obviously, Brandon is, I won't hear gardener where he is, but just like you, we're adapting to this, but we're also excited to see where this is going. And importantly, before we get started, we certainly hope that you and your family and friends are safe from COVID-19. Obviously, that's the number one thing, and what drives us every day is keeping people at work and helping companies keep their contingent labor. It's such an important time right now for everybody to get paid. So we have a series of slides that we're going to run through, and we're going to talk first about the gig economy market, and we're going to show you some news articles about various segments here, and Brandon will chime in. Thanks, Brandon. Chime in anytime you want. We'll talk through these topics, and let's talk about the impact of COVID-19 on labor. And this particular article from the New York Times, there was a segment from this article that said, I think there's still in the back of people's minds the memory that 4 weeks ago now, per this article, we were in the tightest labor market in the past 50 years. Now we're in the worst. And the speed of change that we've seen, which now seems to be hour to hour, like Brandon contacts me and texts me and gives me news. I'm like, wow, how did that happen? Brandon, what do you think about this speed of change that we're seeing? Things happen so fast.
I think a lot of people think they're immune, right? And that things can't turn on a dime. And for so long, that one of the things that we've always advocated is you never know what's going to happen tomorrow. And this is proven time and time again is, many companies, what they're finding is, they're dusting off the continuity plans of operations that they never thought they would have to use. They're refining those. They're implementing all these strategy communications to just, how do we handle that? From companies that have just gone to work from home. You might have 5,000 employees, 50,000 employees that, within a week, you have to now have them all work from home. So the speed of change is nothing like we've been able to predict. However, more important to really understand the importance and the ability to flex. This is so key. What we're finding is those companies that were ready to flex and adapt, they are being successful. And we'll talk about that a little bit more. But it's, if anything, what I think there's been an awareness just talking about the gig workers. People now know what these folks are, right? They're more aware, whether it be your Uber drivers, whether it be your Instacart delivery. All these delivery people are kind of what's fueling the economy, and we're going to be talking about that here in a minute too. But it's really important that, without a doubt, things are going to change from the gig market. So when we come out of this, and we will come out of it, organizations really have to start looking, okay, as they breathe a sigh of release, but now's not the time to pause and try to get things back to normal. It's going to be the opportunity to really start changing how processes are done.
You're so right about that. One thing that I'm thankful for, and Brandon, you started this culture at EverHive, is the ability to think different and be agile. I think that's part of what we're seeing, why clients have liked EverHive with its hybrid MSP and transparent EOR, as opposed to traditional managed services programs and vendor management systems. It's just different out there. So I have to knock on wood. Not only did we find the right industries, but I think there's a habit here of change that's allowed us to move real quick and actually put our heads together recently to come up with some good ideas, which we're going to talk about at the end. So expect change, everybody. It is just starting. But let's embrace it, be ready for it, look at it as opportunities, not challenges. You just mentioned, now's not the time to sit back. I think we all need to put our head down and think about how we can help others. I do feel like once we get out of this current crisis, that the world's going to look at businesses that help others as fundamental. So now this is a scary... This stat's ridiculous. So Newsweek article said there was Federal Reserve analyst said basically that 47 million Americans risk being out of work. So this top article here, this top quote from the article basically says 47 million jobs may be lost, pushing the nationwide total to 52.8 million when the estimated 5 million who are already out of work are included. This is ridiculous right here, but it says this would push the U.S. unemployment rate to 32.1%, significantly higher than the 24.9% rate of unemployment last marked during the worst stretch of the 1930s Great Depression. That is not a good stat. That is, we look back, I don't know about you, Brandon, but I look back at pictures from the Depression and it seems like I'm, watching The Great Gatsby or something. It seems like so long ago, but we're in the midst of something that might be worse. Let's hope it doesn't happen. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, if anything, I've been sharing just with friends and family and colleagues. It's, minus the stats, because the stats are tremendous, right? It's even hard to wrap our heads around. But understanding that we're part of a time that's going to be part of the history books, for generations to come, well after we're long off this planet. And so really it's when you kind of start looking at it from that perspective and having the insight. You think about the Great Depression and folks in the 30s. My grandparents were teenagers in the Great Depressions, and they didn't have the insight, the knowledge. They didn't have any of the technology that we had to be able to say, how do we get out of this, right? Thankfully, the Fed wasn't around. Thankfully, we have tools and resources and knowledge to get beyond this. So I look at it as it's hurting tremendously. A lot of organizations, I can look out the window and I know several business owners just here in downtown San Diego that have just horror stories that, my heart goes out to them. And at the other side of all this, we really have an opportunity to start doing things differently. So it was something I've always been advocating for a long time, is how do we want our society to be? How do we want our work life to be? How do we want to treat workers? And then how do we just kind of corral them? And we're seeing that in such unprecedented ways of companies corralling around workers and in warp speed that it's hard to even think, when we look back to say, wow, we did all of these things, and I think what's so critically important is for people just not, just from a positivity, stay positive type of thing, but really focus on where can we have the biggest impact to our local communities, to our workers, And then just how do we help each other, whether it be in, helping organizations, helping communities. It's really a great opportunity that we get to kind of define of what that looks like. We're right in the middle of it. So, and to be able to do this technology, to have this interview and this conversation, and to know that in 3, 4, 5 weeks, you know, we can kind of hopefully, fingers and toes crossed, that we can take a pause and say, all right, now what is it that we want to do? Whereas I look at pictures of the Great Depression, they probably just didn't know what was happening, right? So from a fortunate standpoint, we do have history to look back upon, and the insight and knowledge now to say, what do we need to do, move forward, and to get it thriving, hopefully even better than it was before.
I love what you said. You know, I've been fortunate enough through EverHive, and then also at EverHive, we're exploring blockchain and artificial intelligence too, and we're bringing that to bear here. But I'm also advising some AI companies that are directly involved with COVID-19 solutions. And I've talked to many high-level people. And just to hit on what you said, Brandon, I'm talking C-level presidents, CEOs of multi-billion-dollar corporations. And what I've been impressed with, and there's two camps here, is that the leadership of some of those people who are certainly at home with their kids, a little nervous, but they have values, they have a mission, they're on it. And I get off those calls with those leaders and say, okay, big picture, they understand, they're optimistic, but they are resolute about doing something specific. So thank you for bringing that up.
Right? I mean, you're inspired by getting off the calls because they're so laser focused, and they don't know what's going to happen either. You know, we're all taking it kind of next day. They're just focused on that mission.
Right. Inspired, or even in the moment being that person if I need to be, but I'm mostly inspired by the people I talk to. So thank you for taking it to the leadership route, because all of us as professionals in workforce management, HR, finance, procurement, it's up to us. So we have to, that's why Brandon and I are doing this. We have to take responsibility for it and find solutions. So a couple other stats here from this Newsweek article. Over 3 million people filed for unemployment last year, and 27 million people are in high contact intensive jobs. So
no. Let me just, sure. Not last year, last week. 3
Last week, I'm sorry. Last week. Yeah, absolutely. Good point. That's just last week. So unbelievable. Let's move on to the next slide here. So this I thought was an interesting article in National Review. It talks about coronavirus and the gig economy, and one kind of tangential, because we brought it up multiple times, technology. The cycles and waves of the 1930s are different in timing than the cycles and waves of the roaring 20s of the 2000s. Technology is speeding things up. The cycle goes up quick and busts quick. We better get used to it, because we're in the roaring 20s, and wait till things like artificial intelligence when we have and quantum computing get here, when things really move fast. But this article was interesting because it stated that, you know, it's been just 13 years since the first iPhone was sold. 13 years. That is not a long time. It seems like decades upon decades. And that, I think, is indicative of where we're at from a technology and economic standpoint, is that technology is helping things ramp up quick and ramp down quick. Now, the point of this article was that lower wage workers have access to jobs now like never before. They don't have to go through their network. They don't have to go through traditional staffing companies. They go right to where the market is. And I believe, and you're going to see some stats on the staffing company that Brandon's going to remark on shortly, that the industry is going to really be disrupted now. Gig economy is in the forefront. What we used to call contingent labor staffing is now kind of all being blended together. So we're going to talk about that. But Brandon, any thoughts on workers' empowerment and just the technology in the industry?
Yeah, I'm so excited just to see what stats will be, you know, in 6 months from now, that come out to say how many gig workers were stayed employed during this whole time, right? Because it's huge. And I would say, in addition to, you know, shout out to all the healthcare workers. I know I have many friends that are nurses and in the industry, and doctors, and the restaurant, groceries, and store folks. Those are full-time folks, right? Those are working tirelessly. And then you have the drivers. I was having some food delivered for my mom through Amazon Fresh. And it was, you know, it was nice to see. She had a mask on. I was able to watch this whole thing because my mom has Ring. And so seeing the person deliver, drop the food in gloves, and, you know, that person most likely is a gig worker. right? And at the forefront of also driving, being able, literally driving, but driving food to people. So that's helping protect, putting their lives also on the line too, so that elderly folks and other folks that are just scared to go out, or can't go out, have access to that, and so it's really going to be fascinating to see what those numbers turn out to be, what the ratio of FT from full-time workers to contract and gig workers look like.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's just, you brought up history a little bit. It's kind of crazy to understand that in World War II, we knew who the enemy was, right? It was physical and we could see it. And then VED and VJ Day, we cheered for the Army, Navy, Marines, and Air Force. And then in 9/11, the things really became microscopic with terrorist groups, and that changed our economy. And now things are literally microscopic, right? Our enemies are microscopic, and the heroes, 9/11 first responders, heroes now, people on the front lines, right? Our delivery people. FedEx just delivered something today that I thought was going to be here on Friday. I'm like, dude, how are you? And to the driver who came, I was just outside, and it just happened to show up, and he's like, whew, took a deep breath and said, I hope at least you're getting overtime. So, and then the next, and the microscopic trend, as we get farther in the decade, just even information is going to cause cyclone waves. It won't even be microbial at that standpoint. We'll see who the heroes are then, but I agree with you. God bless everybody who's on the front lines of this in the service and hospital industry. And I know that our goal at EverHive is to help keep people employed, and those people are doing a great job. So the second part of this article kind of states that it's the marketplace for workers that's driving their ability and want to work. It's not governmental regulations, and this is gig economy. It's not governmental regulations. It's not the pure economic standpoint of pricing and so forth, but it's now, as we'll see in a slide, the Instacart workers striking because they just don't feel like they're safe and being paid enough now. The market is driving labor now, and because of technology, workers have power. Any thoughts on that, Brandon?
Yeah, it's it makes a person pause when you think about that. It's the economy that's driving some of those things, and to a sense, it probably always was but it was never kind of captured that way. But now that you really look at it, it's the economy, it's protection, it's health, it's pay, it's all of these things that are coming together to say, hey, we're in demand, and we're happy to be of service. Just protect us, protect us, whether it be, we have families too. We're happy to do this. We're grateful to do it. Protect us. And that's really kind of, at the fundamental core of all of this. It's really fascinating to look at it as part of the economy, right? And you can take, hey, economy equals protection and, so on and so forth. But to see that as a driver is huge. Again, it always has, so, but just more kind of different pieces of it is in a different way.
I totally agree with you on that front. And I think to get technical, what you reminded me of is that we've had a shift over the past 10 years from staffing W-2 workers who taxes are collected, remitted. They usually have an end date to their assignment with temp workers. Things have been pushed now to 1099 gig workers. The problem with that has been in today's society is 1099 workers don't get the benefits, PTO, they don't get healthcare benefits. And now we're paying for it at this point. So you brought up a good point, which is the market is going to be disrupted with gig economy workers who don't have some of these benefits. I think that there's going to be governmental regulation around that. I think you're going to see a lot of W-2 workers, 1099 transitioning, or some kind of new workforce that is 1099 based with mandates on PTO and health benefits. So I know that we've been talking a lot about that. It's part of our transparent employer of record. Any other thoughts on that?
Yeah, even the hybrid model, right? To where organizations say, you know what, I want to take care of our workers. So we'll contribute. We consider them as, there's always been, and I've preached about this for longer than I cared to, but there's always been the stigma, we got to have an arm's distance. Well, yes, and they're still workers. They're still working for you, doing something specific for your organization. So what we're going to find is I really start thinking there's going to be more of a hybrid type of approach to where, hey, we want to give these workers, and we're not going to wait for government regulations to come down, although I strongly believe that there will be. And it, we have a goal. My personal goal is to actually work with some of the government regulations on helping create policy in regards to gig workers and contingent workers. So, but I think organizations are going to be more proactive. We're already seeing that. We already have a couple of our clients that are being proactive and has gone above and beyond what I have ever seen in my career. And it's refreshing because I think that's the companies that are able to do it, that have that strong people first mission. These are the people that they don't have a shortage of talent. And that's the kind of, when you look at it, it's how you treat your people, and that's that's a whole nother article for a different day.
Yeah, we used to, over the past decade, that employer of choice term came out, and that was a big, obviously that translated into having a good job site and having good, but now I think we're really, with social media, that kind of PR spreads within hours for companies. So interesting take. So the Instacart strike. So in the past week alone, and this was a recent article, so over the past 2 weeks, but in 1 week, 250,000 people signed up for Instacart. Now, Instacart is a gig economy company. It's a technology, and they don't employ anybody, but at least not directly. But basically, these Instacart shoppers go out to stores locally, and they pick the goods off the shelf, they pay for it, and they bring it to a person's house. And there's been 250,000 new customers on that, rightfully so, on that service in a week. And then the workers at the Instacart company, they have a strike, if you can even call it that, because it's not the auto workers union here. It's a loose band of confederation of people coming together that are gig workers demanding rights. So they strike because lack of pay and safety considerations. We've kind of hit upon that. But Brandon, this is interesting that that independents, fragmented individuals are organizing themselves. And of course, Uber drivers have class action against Uber and Lyft and things like that. But any thoughts on this?
Yeah, I think kind of to my earlier comment is I'm going to love to see the numbers, on this, because, again, it kind of goes down to just protections and doing the right thing. And it's, and to a company's credit, to get that surge, I don't know what that percentage of 250,000 is from a business. That's a huge surge in probably, a month, right, of new people, and to get people on board and all that good stuff. That's why it's even more critical just to be able to scale like that, because you never know when your business is going to scale significantly up or it needs to scale down temporarily. That's, again, love to talk to some of the Instacart folks just to see what they would like to see have done differently when they kind of do a post-mortem of all this.
I would expect that they're going to demand the simple things like health insurance and PTO. So if they're sick, they can take care of themselves and their family. And Brandon, you and I were out at a U.S. brand, at least that I think everybody would know, retail brand and clothing company recently. We had the CFO and COO there in the room, and we started to share with them. We went into why temp labor. Well, to some degree, it's companies moving workers off their books for workers' comp and unemployment and cash flow reasons, and that in the gig economy was accelerated to let's not have any. They're 1099, so let's just get them off our books entirely. And going back to your hybrid model, I think that that CFO and that COO, who are really smart guys, they were like, wow, that's an interesting strategy you have with your transparent employer record. So I think that we're going to see this real, and it's all financial driven, right? If you could say, if you have some of the prospects companies in our pipeline have up to $1 billion of gig labor, and this particular company have 30 some odd million, and that's a significant amount when you talk about 1% savings, 2%. So anyway,
well, you hit on something really important here, and I want everyone to listen to this. Is when you think, a lot of people say, oh, it's 1-2%. These aren't fluff numbers that we talk about. These are real hard cost dollar savings that impact the bottom line. So, as doing things differently instead of just taking that, if it's 1, 2, 3, some are 5% decrease or more, in savings. There's things that you can do with that actually help elevate that. So instead of, we're just going to take that, 5 or 6% in savings and chalk it up to cost savings. Well, what if you were to invest in it in a different way? And so those are some of the things that we talk about in our transparent model, but really that we help educate the companies with that they didn't know were even possible, right? But then guess what? They're going to get their retention. They get those workers. Those workers want to stay. They start referring friends, and it spirals from there just by taking a small percentage of that savings and reinvesting it in a strategic way.
Yeah, and that strategic way could be reinvesting it into PTO for gig workers or even benefits, which would make them an employer of choice. You reminded me again, we were at that meeting a couple weeks back at one of the EverHive clients with procurement, and he brought out his yellow pad, literally, he had some numbers scribbled. And he was still, even though the invoices had been sent, the program is fairly new, he still wanted to sit down and go, let me understand this. I don't really get, are we really saving this much? He had the numbers. But we went through it and a smart guy, right? Good with like math off the top of his head. But we went through it. He's like, wow, okay, this is a couple $1 million of savings that we have here on $30-40 million in gig labor. So you reminded me of that and how astonishing it is. And now we can take that savings and reinvest it in the welfare of the workforce, which would lead to, I was on the phone with an American Airlines employee, had to cancel a ticket to a Miami trip. And I can't tell you how thankful that person was to be employed right now. She said, I'm working from home. I'm working extra. She was super nice on the phone. I think we're finally realizing what we have and appreciating. And the companies are going to need to have that to retain these gig workers. So I think that's critical.
100% on that.
Anything else there? I'll move to the next slide.
Yeah, I think I agree with you 100% on that.
Okay, cool. Well, this Forbes article had 21 gig. You can go to Google and type in the title and bring these things up. And then in the, and my Alexa just went off, or my Google just went off because I said Google. You can, which is scary, but you can bring these articles up and see the full 21. But here's some data points here on hot industries. So Rob Biederman, CEO of Catalent, there's been an increase in finance and a decrease in marketing communications. And you can imagine the marketing world is probably reeling there, even on the professional level. Mateo Stevenson, CEO Snagajob, hospitality and travel hit hard. Survey data shows 35% of employers plan to add staff in coming weeks, particularly grocery, pharmacy, warehousing, cleaning, and delivery. So nothing groundbreaking there, just reiterating. Upper right, Mark Ibrahim, CEO of Ash Golly, noticing an increase in demand for everything related to remote work. No demand anymore for gigs in event planning, which completely makes sense. Can you imagine that industry? We saw, Brandon, you and I a couple weeks ago were astonished that SXSW was canceled. We're well beyond that now. But that was, you and I were like, wow. We both posted and put the emoji with the open mouth, right? But now that would be like, okay, let's move on. But event planners have got to be really hit hard. Sorry for anybody that's in that industry, by the way. Anthony Belin, CEO of Collective Benefits, hospitals, care homes, delivering food, logistics, mobility are all seeing unprecedented demand. So staffing companies that are in that space are doing extremely well, and those gig economy companies are doing extremely well. Before I go to the next one here, Brandon, any thoughts on industries in general?
Yeah, so I think, I was just I got a text late last night from a recruiter buddy of mine that recruits for the staffing industry. He's like, they're 14, 15-hour days. So, recruiting for those folks. So definitely, healthcare is going to be on the verge. Biotech, all of those pharmaceuticals, gaming, streaming. So, you're a gaming company. Everybody's at home, right? And Netflix and the Hulus and all those companies, I would imagine they're going to do very well in this. And
Yeah, agreed. So hopefully some of you can shift to that are in staffing, and you have clients that have that need and can help keep your people internally employed, because Brandon and I have had conversations with a bunch of recruiter friends, unfortunately some of whom have lost their jobs pretty quickly. So, and then this last one is John Windsor, CEO of Open Assembly. The average cost of office space per employee is estimated at $25,000 per person per year. Significant. Now that people have been working remotely well, it doesn't seem that offices will stay the same. Now, a call I had earlier today was with the chief data officer of a credit card company that everybody has in their wallet. And it's not the one that says what's in your wallet. It's not that one. But she is runs a global organization and has a lot of authority. And she's like, I'm still adjusting to this remote work. And our entire Asia Pac, tens of thousands of people are all remote now. And I'm just getting used to this. And I was, and again, leader, knew what she was doing, focused on it, wanted to give back. So all that was impressive, but I was still kind of blown away by, wow, this is somebody of this ilk is kind of feeling it. Do you agree? I mean, what's this mean for gig economy?
Well, I think it might have been you and I that had a conversation when this first hit, because I think California was one of the first states to kind of declare a stay at home, right? And a conversation that either I had with you or somebody else that was, this is fundamentally going to change the way that businesses operate. Not only from, if you start thinking about, if companies start saying, hey, you know, we weathered that 1 to 2, 3 months pretty well with everybody working from home. Do we need all this space, right? So, you know, I think, again, if I own commercial real estate buildings, I'd be looking at how do I kind of convert those things where it's shared office spacing. You know, there's companies that do that, but you know, all of those things they're going to relook at, because that's an average cost. You said you budgets for when I ran global HR teams, and when we look at, you know, what is that cost per person, that overhead, you know, they're going to start taking a look at that. Can we invest more in the technology side, or do we need to have all this office space? Can we do shared, you know, we're seeing that some of the essential businesses, you know, they're trying to keep that social distancing, but they're doing, you know, one person comes in for 1 week, the other person works from home. Next week, that other person comes into the office. So I really think companies are going to start reimagining what their setup looks like, you know. And again, it's just, that's just my firm belief. Said that from, you know, right when this happened, I said, wow, it's really fundamentally going to change the way that organizations rethink, especially a lot of these massive campuses, you know, that are around. May not make a difference, you know, if you have an office suite, but, you know, these campuses of these large organizations, it might change. So it'll be interesting to follow up in that in a year and see, you know, how that's changed.
It's going to be interesting. Really good points. I'm in Los Angeles, Brandon. You're in San Diego. Over the weekend, I took a drive, and I was on the 405 freeway. And first of all, it's like the Autobahn now. Not that this is good, but it seems like the average flow of traffic is 90 miles an hour in LA. Everybody's trying to get like all this pent up, you know, lead foot that's happening. But I was in downtown LA, is where I wanted to go down there by the Staples Center and then the building. And man, it was like I Am Legend. It was just like not a lot of people down there. And maybe it'll be more like that, right? These cities, you know, I thought things like Hyperloop, where we're getting people around the world at 2,000 miles an hour, basically, with this new technology, and that still might happen, but we might see a lot more work from home, and that's gonna impact temp labor too. Matter of fact, and you brought this up a little bit, is that the exchange idea that we're implementing at EverHive, where we have workers work part-time at one company and then get paid by the same employer of record for working at a second, third, fourth, fifth company in the same week to retain their earnings. For professionals, I think we're going to be able to see people do that. I think we're going to be able to see people work like the entertainment industry, which I had a lot of experience in. They work on one movie, then a TV show, and then they might work at the Staples Center in the same week for lighting, for example. I think we're going to see with this remote work, now you can have a controller who works for 3 companies at once on a gig assignment work from home, as opposed to driving to Long Beach, Los Angeles, and then Burbank, which would kill them. So anyway, look forward to a lot of that. I mean, I'd say look forward, but
I think there was always a lot of hesitancy, right? Again, I think fear drove a lot of organizations, just like fear drove, hey, you know, this co-employment thing with contract workers, contingent workers. I see fear drove, like, I don't know, will the worker actually be doing work? This has given them an automatic, does it work or not for my organization? You know, you can see it. And that's where organizations really get to know. It's like my wish with every organization is that they realize how much fear kept them from being ready, and moving beyond that fear to say, okay, we got to move forward as we reestablish our organization and get ready for now the truly the 21st century of doing things, differently.
Yeah, as we talk this through, and you and I are like this anyway, I think luckily for us, we've been able to build this platform, and especially you, is that this call, really a common thread here is opportunity and taking advantage of it and helping others, right? Not living in what, the past, and you've got to learn lessons, but really in taking advantage of the moment, and let's everybody that's watching this take responsibility and create solutions for our industry and make this better. We have to, now's the time. So I appreciate just reiterating that.
Well, and then, even just a side note to add to that is, for anybody who's watching, whether you're in procurement, finance, HR, whether you're, a C-suite or, an assistant or what have you, whatever level you are at, now more than ever, I believe, is your time to set. You're going to see ideas come from everyone. So I encourage everyone at all levels to step up to share an idea of what works, what's not with their boss or their leaders, or vice versa. If you're C-suite, find out what's working, what's not working from those that are reporting into your organization, because that's going to be key of really structuring the business efficiently.
Yeah. And along those lines, Brandon, I'm going to speak on your behalf. If you do have ideas out there in contingent labor, workforce management, global employment, please contact us. We want to talk to you. If it's not for us, we'll put you in touch with people. If you can help, let's go after business continuity, keeping people employed. We want to hear from you, and then we'll use our network and work together to help you and then help get your idea out there. So please reach us. That's part of the goal here with this. Moving forward, again, I've been knocking on wood a lot and wearing it out, but you have to be thankful that we're in the video game industry, Brandon. We've seen, for example, here in this Gaming Economy magazine that Microsoft has seen a 775% uptake in Teams calling, which means that people grouping together for video games, primarily, they attribute it to the video game industry because people are at home. So esports and gaming has become huge. And again, thankfully, we're in that, and we've had some good results there, and we'll continue to be in that. Steam has had 20 million concurrent users, setting a new record. Steam is a platform of communication for gamers. Short term, it's been an obvious spike in video game streaming. Twitch has seen 10% year-over-year increases, and video gaming is up 75% in the US. All streaming is up 12% in the pandemic. So I guess the moral to this story, and you can talk about video games a little bit, is find the good industry that's growing, right?
Well, to recruiters that might be watching, or other folks, always kind of, diversify. It's for me is a lot of folks, when we went into going after, kind of a gaming client and in the gaming industry, I remember people saying, you don't have the gaming experience. That's such a coveted industry, and it is. But guess what? That just kind of shows the ability to, when you are truly partners with people, you're able to learn what the industry is, what the terminology is. I've learned more just from, but having, game, I've considered myself kind of a semi-gamer back in the day. But, what we're finding now is being able to partner with those firms to see what works from a technology standpoint. How do you keep your contingent workers? How do you flex up and down quickly, right? In that, not only just here in the US, but across the globe. What systems work? What systems can work together, is key. And that's going to continue. Again, I'd say entertainment, streaming, the gaming, all of those industries have that opportunity, right, to continue to move forward. And my wish is for those companies, again, anything that we've learned, me personally, I've learned, take nothing for granted, with that, from simple haircut to everything. So I think when things do start to normalize, is for those companies specifically now take a look and say, okay, shake it off. What can we do? Because whether they can, will they sustain that increase? Probably, I don't know. but at the same time is really the perfect time to take a look at processes. Really, again, the opportunity to take a look at, not just saying, okay, let's just take a sigh of relief and we can look at that in 2 or 3 years. No, you can't. You got to start looking at it now. You got to start looking at processes now. And you start looking at what works, not only from a governance and compliance standpoint, but what works in order to get the people that you need at the most critical time. How do you flex up and down? So I can't stress that enough. If you're in one of these industries, the gaming industry, the streaming industry, reach out to the right resources. And again, if it's not us, we'll recommend some folks that are, but I still love to have the conversation because I'm all about partnerships anyway, and just understanding, how we can help. So it's, reach out, because I love to brainstorm with people. And I literally set aside time each week to brainstorm with companies that, heard of me for the first time, heard of, hey, you got your name, can I just run an idea by you? Those are some of the best calls I have, because then I get inspired and hopefully they walk away with something, that helps them personally and in their organization.
Totally agree. And I appreciate all that. Just to reiterate what you're saying, you didn't know a lot about gaming, Brandon, but you put one foot in front of the other and you took steps forward and you learned it. But I think the key was that, having principles and values and under promising and over delivering, that's what's important. And that's what's rare. So for our friends in the staffing industry, speaking for Brandon's behalf, a lot of you are going through tough times, just got let go. We feel for you. I think Brandon and I have both been there at some point. We feel bad. We'll help however we can, but put one foot in front of the other. Find a tidal wave industry, gaming, artificial intelligence, streaming, future transportation, and go after it. Because the economy's certainly slowing, but the world is not going to go anything but push forward. So there's going to be opportunities, and thanks for bringing that up, Brandon. I appreciate it. Staffing industry analysts, we were excited about going to their big event later in the year, CWS, and we will see where that happens. We were being a presenter and a sponsor there, but they're well respected. For those of you that aren't in the staffing industry and are watching this, the SIA is well respected, does a fantastic job with keeping tabs on the industry, and they have some scary stats. The quote on the left here is that some staffing companies are getting their assignments ended early. Their people are having their assignments ended early because of lack of work or planned drop in the workload. And then companies are extremely hesitant to bring new people on. And of course, that seems common sense. But the huge stat for the staffing industry is in the bottom right. The 27 firms that report to staffing industry analysts regularly are seeing between an 8 and 40% drop in revenue. 40%? That's crazy. That you're, as a business owner, and by the way, it's over 10,000 small staffing companies in the US, and there's a couple dozen big staffing companies that are over $100 million or more. The staffing industry is going to be in for a big change here, Brandon. I mean, 9/11 hurt us a lot. 2008 hurt us a lot, but I think this is different. What do you think?
It definitely is. Again, I think every business has to relook at the way that they're doing things, right? And I think, just no pun intended, but this is a massive disruption to the staffing industry. Those that, might be in an industry that's being, hospitality, that might be massive. I mean, they're massively impacted. I had 4 calls just last week from friends of mine, and it's heartbreaking. I've seen it. And really it's taking a look at what can you do? Where can you offer support? Again, the flip side, looking back at what's to come, they're talking about a kind of a phase 4 potential stimulus on infrastructure. You talked about future transportation and those types of things. Those are really kind of some key areas to start pivoting, because that's going to have a ripple down effect in ways that we can't imagine of new jobs, current jobs. I guess my underlying theme is when things get returned and we arise from this, and we will, is do not get complacent. Do not get complacent with, hey, we weathered through it, we're good, now let's just get business back. No, it can't be just let's get business back. It's how do we get business back that really impact organizations, that really provide value, that can really help drive an organization and help them. That's key, and that's just the underlying energy theme that feels like that we're almost being taught is complacency is not okay.
Love that. Well said. Thank you for that. Agreed. Lots to learn there as well. So we want to let you know about a couple EverHive solutions that we have been helping our clients with. Transparent Employer of Record is one where we've saved clients quite a bit of money, in the millions in some cases. So we've been delivering that for a while, but we think is really relevant now. And then our new EverHive Exchange idea, where we're going to work diligently to put people back to work for multiple companies, although being paid through the same employer of record. So having people work, Monday, Wednesday at one company, Tuesday, Thursday at another, Friday maybe at another. So our short-term goals, Brandon, as we've outlined kind of in this COVID-19 crisis, is to make it easy for companies to keep and hire their contingent workers, right? The more they can keep, the better. For business continuity and ensure that we can get a maximum number of people back to work. How do we do that? We've got to look at our contingent labor costs. We can take some of those savings and retain workers. We can also help protect them better. And then by having this new innovative exchange idea, which you can go into a little bit here, and we're talking to employers about, we do want to get your feedback on it, where contingent workers can work on multiple clients in the same week, Monday, Wednesday at one place, Tuesday, Thursday at another place. You want to talk a little bit about our philosophy and our solutions that we're pivoting on?
Yeah, and just like everyone who's listening in, who's watching this, we're figuring this all out right along with you. And it's, important that we get your input, because that's really how just the EverHive model has always been. It's kind of a collective input of what's worked best for so many organizations. And we're going to be reaching out, and if you're watching this, please reach out to us, because we'd love to just run the idea by you, to share. Our whole goal is, we're in this business, we're in the people business. So we want to get as many people back to work as we can. And we want to make sure companies are thriving again. And that's really, really, really kind of the mission here, is those two things of helping companies thrive, putting people back to work, and how can we do it quickly, right? With the least amount of impact to either workers or companies. And so we're excited about this exchange idea that my personal opinion, that feels like it's going to be a game changer in getting people back to work. Excited about it. Again, it's a whole nother conversation on what specifically it is. If you're interested in having a conversation, 15, 20-minute maybe conversation, just to get your thoughts on what you think it is, what could be done differently, we'd love to hear from you. So encourage anybody that's watching this just to reach out and let us jump on a 15, 20-minute call with you, just to hear the idea out. We're open book. We believe in transparency just in general. That's kind of our model. So love to hear people say, hey, great idea, here's where you can improve on, or great idea, and here's some of the stumbling blocks you might challenge. Those are it's just invaluable feedback. So encourage anybody to reach out. Just let us know how it's impacting you, how all this has impacted you. Saw an article from a friend of mine in the industry, and she says, I only had one person ask how it's impacting me. Everybody's so tied up. And so, and that hit home for me, because one of my things, I want to make sure people are taken care of in my circle and our clients. And, so let us know how it's impacting you, and then what you need and what you could use support on. I would love to have those conversations with you. So please reach out.
I love that, Brandon. So you can reach us, and I think there's been a wealth of information here. Thanks for your opinion on this and being a part of this today. And so people can reach us here at info@everhive.com. I think we'll be doing some more we'll be doing these meetings regularly. I think Brandon and I have both kicked ourselves because we are able to tap into so much knowledge in the industry, but we're not doing this enough. So we're resolving to do that. And we look forward to you reaching out at info@EverHive so we can tell you what we're learning and learn a little bit from you. So please do that. Brandon, last word?
Yeah, and just, tell us what you would like to hear. This helpful for you. Let us know what you would like, some articles. We're happy to do some research and just find out, through our partners and through respected organizations like Spend Matters, SIA, all these great groups. What do you need? What are you experiencing? Even if it's just I'm touching my eye and I shouldn't be touching my eye.
Yeah, well, you've been quarantining yourself, so.
But reach out to us and tell us what you need and what you would like to hear us share some information on.
Yeah, I love that. Well, thank you everybody again. Brandon, thank you so much for the time. We will obviously be including links to the article and references as best we can here, and we'll talk to you all soon. Take care.
Stay safe, everyone.